Welcome to the City Planning Commission's public meeting. And Madam Secretary, please begin.
Good morning, everyone. We will first begin with a special review session, followed by the regular public meeting. Commissioners, today is Wednesday, August 23rd, 2017. The time is 9:35 a.m., and a quorum is present. Commissioners, our first and only item on today's special review session agenda is a City Council modification. Calvin Brown from the Manhattan office is here to present.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is a City Council modification for ECF East 96th Street. This is a land use application that was approved by the Commission on June 21st and referred to the City Council. The City Council has modifications to two of the applications associated with this project, and there are clarifications on the plans and the labeling of the the labeling on the legend, and to clarify on the site plan that the heights have been reduced as previously proposed in the application. A letter has been drafted by the department that these changes are within scope, and if the Commission is fine with those changes, then that letter will be forwarded back to City Council.
Any questions from commissioners? If not, then I would ask for an assent by a show of hands to send a letter to the City Council advising them that the modification is in scope. Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Secretary, any other items for the special review session?
No, Chair Lago.
Okay, so today's special review session is adjourned, and now we move to the public hearing.
The time is now 9:37 a.m. Okay, good morning. This is the City Planning Commission public meeting held at the Manhattan Municipal Building, 1 Center Street. Today is Wednesday, August 23rd, 2017. As a courtesy during the proceedings, we ask that you please turn off all cell phones and beepers. All speakers should fill out a speaker's card. In addition, we ask that those providing testimony please identify yourself, limit your remarks to 3 minutes, and speak clearly into the microphone. I will now call the roll. Chair Lago.
Here.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Here.
Commissioner Besser.
Here.
Commissioner Cantor. Commissioner Cerullo.
Here.
Commissioner De La Uz.
Here.
Commissioner Dweck.
Here.
Commissioner Eady. Commissioner Efron.
Here.
Commissioner Knight.
Here.
Commissioner Levin.
Here.
Commissioner Marin.
Here.
Commissioner Ortiz. A quorum is present. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, August 9th, 2017.
On the minutes, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved.
Scheduling. On calendar numbers 1 through 5, we have resolutions for adoption scheduling Wednesday, September 6th, 2017 for a public hearing to be held in Spector Hall, 22 Reade Street.
On the resolution, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The resolutions are adopted.
The next part of the calendar is the report section on page 7. Reports, Borough of the Bronx, numbers 6 through 9, CD4, number 6, C170311ZMX, number 7, N170312ZRX, number 8, C170314 PPX, number 9, C170315ZSX. In the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments for disposition of city-owned property and for the grant of a special permit concerning the Lower Concourse North rezoning. For favorable reports on calendar numbers 6 through 9. Chair Lago.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
I just want to salute the chair and the department for the modifications around this application, and particularly the chair's certification that will issue in this case. I think it's appropriate for a project of this magnitude and far-reaching impact. I vote yes.
Commissioner Besser.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner De La Uz.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Efron.
Yes.
Commissioner Knight.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
I remain troubled that this, all we know about this application is that it could contain up to 1,045 housing units, up to 500 of which could be affordable. That would be a good project. but nothing in our disposition action requires that program. I remain troubled by these blank check dispositions from EDC. It is, of course, a great mitigation to this that the chair has been able to arrange the post-ULURP review certification to ensure that the project's design and development program remains consistent with the Commission's overall goals for the area, and therefore I vote yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Favorable reports have been adopted on calendar numbers 6, 7, 8, and 9. Borough of the Bronx, numbers 10 and 11, CD9, number 10, C170377ZMX, number 11, N170378ZRX, in the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning 1675 Westchester Avenue rezoning. For favorable reports on calendar numbers 10 and 11, Commissioner Lago.
Yes.
Commissioner Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Besser.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner De La Uz.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Efron.
Yes.
Commissioner Knight.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Favorable reports have been adopted on calendar numbers 10 and 11. Borough of the Bronx, number 12, CD10, N180015PXX, in the matter of a notice of intent to acquire office space concerning the Taxi and Limousine Commission. For a favorable report on calendar number 12. Commissioner Lago.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Besser.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner De La Uz.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Efron.
Yes.
Commissioner Knight.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 12. Borough of Brooklyn, number 13, CD2, N180016PXK, in the matter of a notice of intent to acquire office space concerning the New York Fire Department. For a favorable report on calendar number 13, Chair Lago,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Besser.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner De La Uz.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Efron.
Yes.
Commissioner Knight.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 13. Borough of Manhattan, number 14, CD2, C170382ZSM, in the matter of an application for the grant of a special permit concerning the Soho Tower. For a favorable report on calendar number 14, Chair Lago,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Besser.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner De La Uz.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Efron.
Yes.
Commissioner Knight.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 14. Borough of Manhattan, number 15, CD10, N170441ZAM, in the matter of an application for the grant of an authorization concerning the West Village houses and Perry Street Garage. For adoption on calendar number 15, Chair Lago,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Besser.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner De La Uz.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Efron.
Yes.
Commissioner Knight.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Calendar number 15 has been adopted. Borough of Manhattan, number 16, CD2, N170067ZAM, in the matter of an application for the grant of an authorization concerning 53 Downing Street. For adoption on calendar number 16, Chair Lago,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Besser.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner De La Uz.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Edie. I'm sorry. Commissioner Efron.
Yes.
Commissioner Knight.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Calendar number 16 has been adopted. Borough of Queens, number 17, CD14, C170351PCQ, in the matter of an application for the site selection and acquisition of property concerning the Engine 268 Ladder 137 Firehouse. For a favorable report on calendar number 17, Chair Lago,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Besser.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner De La Uz.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Efron.
Yes.
Commissioner Knight.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 17. Borough of Queens, number 18, CD8 M851031D ZSQ, in the matter of an application for a modification to a previously approved special permit and restrictive declaration concerning 193-02 Horace Harding Expressway for adoption on calendar number 18. Chair Lago.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Besser. Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner De La Uz.
Yes.
Commissioner Duet.
Yes.
Commissioner Efron.
Yes.
Commissioner Knight.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Calendar number 18 has been adopted. The next part of the calendar is the public hearing section on page 17. Borough of Queens, calendar number 19, CD5 C170394 PCQ. Public hearing in the matter of an application for the site selection and acquisition of property concerning the NYPD Property Clerk Warehouse Consolidation.
Our first speaker in support will be Captain Lizette Scarfuto.
Good morning. I'm Captain Lizette Scarfuto of the NYPD Property Clerk Division. This project involves creating one warehouse big enough to store the tens of thousands of items that the NYPD is obligated to safeguard either as evidence, investigation, safekeeping, and found property. Currently, we have 6 different locations throughout the city that helps us serve this purpose. We have 2 locations in Queens, 2 locations in Brooklyn, and 2 locations in the Bronx. This new warehouse on 55-15 Grand Avenue will be a modern state-of-the-art facility of approximately 400,000 square feet that we believe it will serve our mission for many years to come. It will have humidity and climate control measures to preserve our biological evidence. It will have the latest technological, storage, inventory, and security measures. It will be located out of the flood zone. Currently, 4 of our locations, Erie Basin, Kingsland Avenue, Pearson Place, and Pearson Place Annex, are in the flood zone A area. During Hurricane Sandy in 2012, flooding occurred in some of our warehouses, compromising many barrels of evidence.
Okay.
Consolidation of the warehouses into one location will have many benefits. It will increase our operational efficiencies. It will reduce the duplication of services. It will increase accountability and productivity, and as a result, will lead to increased public satisfaction when they interact with the NYPD property clerk. It will also reduce the department's operating costs. We don't anticipate any change to the current area traffic patterns, and the community will get an added benefit from an increase of police presence in the area. This project has received unanimous approval from the area's community board, and we hope to get your approval for this project as well.
I'll note for the commission that in addition to Captain Scarfuto, we also have available Nina Cotter from DCAS to respond to any questions. Questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Dweck.
Captain, thank you. So, just a question. A, what happens to the other 6 locations that you'll be leaving? And what are the plans for those locations? And B, I know that you're consolidating, and normally that'd be obviously a very beneficial thing for the department. My question is, what happens, wouldn't redundancy in a situation like this be a benefit to the city to have a backup location, or aren't you putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak?
I can take the first question regarding what happens with the other locations. So we're consolidating from 6 different locations. 5 of them are leased. 1 is city-owned. The city-owned will be repurposed potentially for another city agency use. The 5 leased locations, those leases, some of them have already expired, and we are in a month-to-month tenancy. And there are a couple of leases that will be coming for expiration in the next couple of years, so we will just go through natural expirations of those leases.
And Captain, if you can answer about the risk of locating all the property in one location and not having a redundant system.
I'm sorry, sir, you haven't been registered or signed in to speak, so.
Oh, okay. We don't believe that to be the case. We believe that a modern, state-of-the-art facility will compromise all our evidence and it won't, currently our warehouses that we have now are in factory areas that just need to be retrofitted for more modern facilities than we currently have. So we think one modern, state-of-the-art facility will serve our purposes for many years to come.
So after study, you've determined that you're satisfied that that one location will be enough to safeguard all the property and meet your needs?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
We're comfortable with that.
Thank you.
Other questions from the commissioners? Okay, those are the only speakers who have registered, but if there is anyone else present who would want to be heard, please make your way to the podium. Okay, this public hearing, which is the first of 11 public hearings that we're holding today, is closed.
Borough of Brooklyn, calendar number 20, CD2 C160006 PQK. Public hearing in the matter of an application for the acquisition of property concerning the Warren Street Center for Children.
Our first speaker will be Allison Grant.
Good morning. My name is Allison Grant. I am the Chief of Staff for the ACS Division of Early Care and Education. It's good to see all of you again. I'm here today in favor of this continued use of this space at 343 Warren Street, otherwise known as the Warren Street Center, as a daycare center. This space was designed specifically for child care services, and ACS and its earlier iterations have been in this space since 1974. I will speak briefly about the program, and then I'll be happy to take any questions you have. This program is an early learn program, meaning that all families there are low income. They earn less than 200% of the poverty level, and they must have a reason for care, meaning they're working in school or in a vocational training program, or perhaps they're homeless or looking for work for up to 6 months. We occupy all 2 stories of the building, including the roof play area. We serve approximately 70 children, ages 2 to 5 at the center. Enrollment is about 80% right now, which is typical in August because it's a low enrollment period, and we look forward to the fall. And with that, I will answer any questions you may have.
I'll also note for the commissioners that we have available Jimmy Muib from ACS and also Jason Ortiz from DCAS to answer any questions that come up. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Levin.
Yes, Ms. Grant, the images, the photos of the street appearance of this building are really striking. It obviously was built in a time when there were other city concerns in constructing these, but right now it really looks like a prison or a dark site. You can't tell what's going on in there, and it's not very hospitable either to people walking by or I would think welcoming to the children going to daycare there. Is there anything we can do to make it look a little more cheerful?
I can speak briefly as my colleagues both come up to the stage, please. Maybe both of you? Thank you. So I'll say that, as you said, Commissioner Levin, this site was built in the early 70s, and at that time, it was a different period for these kind of centers. I'll let Jimmy and Jason speak to what was part of the lease negotiation and what may be part of the future of the building. As you know, we're looking to all of our exteriors and what we can do to make it a little more hospitable. The commission has brought this up before, and we've heard you. Change takes time, however. So I will defer to my colleagues to answer this question.
Hello, I'm Jason Ortiz with DCAS. Nice to see everyone. The scope of work for this project did not include any major exterior work or beautification for that matter. We will absolutely work towards that goal under the direction of ACS. If it is feasible and possible to make those improvements to the exterior of the site, we will negotiate that as best as we can.
I would think just a little signage, nothing that costs a whole lot of money, but something that just indicates what's going on in the building and
Absolutely.
makes it nice to walk in, especially considering that the entrance is down an alley.
Yes, Commissioner Delahoo's.
Just to that point, and I just happen to know this center a bit in the neighborhood, and I know that there's, to pick up on what Commissioner Levin was saying, Groundswell Community Mural Project, there's also a number of other, nonprofit community-based organizations that do murals. I think that would probably be happy to partner with the center staff to try to create something that helps identify the space in a welcoming way. They're really great, and they have a lot of murals in the area, so that might be part of a solution for your citywide challenge.
Yes, that's definitely something. We've partnered with Pratt on a couple centers in downtown, so maybe we can look to them. We've also worked with Public Color, which is a nonprofit organization, to do some painting in some of our city-owned spaces, and maybe Least will be next, taking it step by step. So thank you for the suggestion.
Other comments or questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
These are the only people who have registered to speak on this item, but if there are others here who would want to be heard, please just make your way to the podium. Okay, so the public hearing on this matter is closed.
Borough of Brooklyn, numbers 21 through 24. CD 16, number 21, C170454ZMK, number 22, N170455ZRK, number 23, C170456HAK, number 24, N170457ZSK. Public hearing. In the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments, UDAP designation, project approval, and disposition of city-owned property, and for the grant of a special permit concerning Edwin's Place.
We are going to have a 10-minute presentation in total by a project team, by the applicant team, which consists of Jocelyn Torrio, Brenda Rosen, Andrew McIntyre, Matthew Okabiyi, Kara McAlter, Teresa Casano, and Lynn Zhang.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jocelyn Torrio, Senior Planner at the Brooklyn Planning Unit at New York City Department of Housing, Preservation, and Development. I'm here to introduce the land use application for Edwin's Place, a proposed project that will transform a 20,000 square foot city-owned vacant lot with an 8-story building with 125 units of affordable and supportive housing, 1 unit for the superintendent, space for the delivery of on-site supportive services, and ground floor retail or community facilities space. With me are Brenda Rosen, President and CEO of Breaking Ground, Matthew Okabiyi, Founder and CEO of African American Planning Commission, Andrew McIntyre, Associate from Robert A.M. Stern Architects, Teresa Casano, Deputy Director from HPD's Supportive Housing Loan Program, and Lynn Zhang, Director from Brooklyn's HPD Brooklyn Planning Unit. To facilitate the proposed project, HPD is seeking approval of the following actions: UDAP designation, project approval, and disposition of city-owned land, a zoning map amendment of the project area from R6 to R72 with a C2-3 commercial overlay, a special permit to allow the maximum allowable community facility floor area ratio to apply to the proposed nonprofit institutional sleeping accommodations. The approval of the special permit and the zoning map amendment will increase the FAR from 3.44 for the nonprofit institutional sleeping accommodations to 4.94. The proposed actions also include a zoning tax amendment to map the project area as an MIH area. However, since the proposed project is Use Group 3, nonprofit institutional sleeping accommodations, MIH will not apply to the proposed project. The ULURP application was certified on June 19th, and Community Board 16 and the Borough President approved the project without conditions. HPD is supportive of this project as it will revitalize a vacant city-owned lot and provide affordable units and supportive services to New York's neediest populations. Also, the proposed project's 125 affordable and supportive units will support the Mayor's Housing New York plan. Additionally, Edwin's Place embodies the goals of the Brownsville Plan, which HPD released earlier this year. The plan, which is a result of a community-driven process, lays out a framework for future city investments in Brownsville. One of the strategies of the Brownsville plan is to promote active mixed-use corridors. The proposed project's ground floor retail and community facility space fronting on Livonia Avenue will advance this plan's goal. Also, the plan calls for creating active and safe public spaces. The proposed developments on a long vacant site will bring new lighting and 24-hour security, which will improve the safety in this part of the neighborhood. Now I will hand the presentation over to Brenda Rosen, who will provide an overview of breaking ground and discuss the details of the proposed project.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Brenda Rosen. I'm CEO and President of Breaking Ground. Better. Breaking Ground and the African American Planning Commission are partnering to co-develop Edwin's Place, an affordable and supportive housing residence in Brooklyn. The project will create 125 units of rent-stabilized permanent housing for low-income and homeless New Yorkers. The project will be developed on a 20,000 square foot vacant parcel of city-owned land in Brownsville, located on Livonia Avenue between Howard Avenue and Grafton Street, 2 blocks from the Saratoga Avenue 3 train station. Breaking Ground, founded in 1990, is New York's largest developer and operator of permanent supportive housing. Our mission is to strengthen individuals, families, and communities by developing and sustaining exceptional supportive and affordable housing, as well as programs for homeless and other vulnerable New Yorkers. We currently have approximately 350 transitional supportive housing units and more than 3,100 units of permanent supportive housing, all with access to on-site support services. We are also the city's provider of outreach services to all of Brooklyn and Queens and nearly 1/3 of Manhattan. I'm joined this morning by Matthew Okabihi, the Executive Director of African American Planning Commission, and in a few minutes he will introduce his organization and talk a little bit about the services that will be available to the residents of Edwin's Place. Edwin's Place will have a total of 115,000 square feet in 8 stories. The building will have a 3,000 square foot storefront for either retail or accessory community facility uses. In addition to the storefront, the ground floor will have a large multipurpose room, a landscaped courtyard for residents, a computer lab, a laundry room, an exercise room, and offices for property management and services staff. The building will have a round-the-clock attended lobby, state-of-the-art security camera system, controlled building access, and on-site maintenance personnel. Breaking Ground will be the property manager, and African American Planning Commission will be the service provider. Robert A.M. Stern Architects is the project architect. Andrew McIntyre from Robert A.M. Stern Architects is here and will describe for you the building's design and sustainable design elements. Edwin's Place will have a mix of studios, 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments. 53 studios and 25 family units will be reserved for formerly homeless individuals and families. Of the 47 units set aside for low-income households, 3 units are studios and 44 units are a mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments. 1 unit in addition to the 125 will be for a live-in super. The 47 units for low-income residents will be apportioned among 3 affordability tiers: 1 for tenants with incomes less than 40% of AMI, a second for tenants with incomes less than 50% of AMI, and a third for tenants with incomes less than 60% of AMI. Community Board 16 residents will receive a preference for 50% of the community units. The project will be financed with tax-exempt bonds, low-income housing tax credit equity, and city and state subsidy mortgages. There will be a project-based Section 8 rental assistance contract for the homeless units. Services funding will be provided through a contract with the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. And with a total development cost of $65 million, the project represents a substantial investment in the community. Edwin's Place will complement the ongoing revitalization of the Livonia Avenue corridor in East New York and Brownsville, facilitated by other DCP rezonings. Our project will also create construction and permanent jobs for local residents and enhance community safety due to the 24/7 attended lobby, security camera system, and attractive and well-lit exterior. I'll now ask my colleague Andrew McIntyre to present the design of the residence.
Brenda. As she mentioned, I'm Andrew McIntyre from Robert A.M. Stern. Is this working? Can you hear me now? All right. Better. All right. I'm Andrew McIntyre from Robert A.M. Stern Architects, as Brenda mentioned. So to present the design of the building, you can see here a view from the corner of Livonia Avenue and Howard Avenue looking northeast. And what you're seeing here is the proposed beige brick blend and metal bays and accents which are keeping in the traditional architecture of the neighborhood, which is predominantly brick. You're also seeing rooftop plantings and pergolas at the top of the building, which will provide shade for the accessible terrace. More on that later. What's hidden from view is the adjacent elevated 3 train, which I'll show you. So this is more realistically the view from Livonia and Howard Avenue. You can see the train is quite close. There are a few things we're doing to mitigate the sound. At the corner of the building where the train is closest, we're not having residential windows that will face away. Additionally, we are taking measures to ensure that the windows that we do install that are facing the train are triple glazed and acoustically isolated so that we can provide some resident comfort. Another view. This is a view at the ground level showing the residential entry. All the residents will share one entry. You can also see that we're providing canopies, which will provide some shade and protection for people entering the building. Also bringing the scale to a more appropriate level and activating the street front in a way that we think is beneficial for this currently vacant corner. As Brenda mentioned, there's a community facility or retail space facing Livonia Avenue that we hope will activate the street front in a consistent way with other initiatives in the neighborhood. Similarly to the residential entry, this will have a covered canopy that provides some protection, and we hope, again, will activate the street front here. In terms of the layout and the interior of the space, so on the ground level, which is on this upper board here, you can see the residential entry at the southwest corner. Throughout that floor, you'll have residential amenities, as Brenda mentioned, a computer lab.
I think that...
if I can wrap up.
Yeah, if you could wrap up quite
Okay.
quickly, and then the commissioners will likely pose questions.
Okay, fine. So just to wrap up this portion, lastly, I would like to mention the sustainable features of the building. The rooftop has solar panels, which will provide a portion of the energy for the development, as well as an accessible terrace for resident use, and a few other amenities, which I'm happy to answer questions about later.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Vice Chair Knuckles.
Thank you, Chair. Could you just elaborate on the question of sound attenuation and how you're addressing that with regard to windows, et cetera?
Sure. So the building envelope will be insulated beyond the code required minimums, which will do 2 things. It'll help with sound. It'll also help with thermal insulation, and that should reduce the sound transmission from the very loud train for the residents who live in there. It's a very thick, complex wall assembly that is more than what you would typically find in a developer building like this. So it's a brick layer, concrete masonry unit layer, insulation, and an airspace that, sorry for the noise upstairs.
Elsewise, tenants will experience what we're doing right
Yeah, exactly.
we're having right now.
I would hope we'd have a better insulation than this, but I think our goal is to mitigate the sound as much as possible.
Yes, Commissioner Efron.
Thank you. I wanted to compliment the development team on such a handsome building that really would and will enhance an otherwise not very interesting stretch along the elevated, and hope that as you go forward, these things are not value engineered out of the project. But I do have a question for Brenda Rosen, just whether or not there will be services for community residents beyond those residents in the building associated with the project.
Good morning, Commissioners. First, Madam Chair, I want to thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. Thank you so very much.
We tried.
My name is Matthew Okabi. I'm the founder and executive director of African American Planning Commission. We are partnering with Breaking Ground to develop this project. Our organization will be providing services to all the tenants of the building. We recently received funding from the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to provide services to both single adults and to the families in the building, those who need supportive services. In addition to that, we are going to be providing services to those who do not require supportive services, who just simply need affordable housing. We're going to provide a host of services. What we have done so far is we've partnered with a bunch of local service providers in the community, also municipal organizations, and we have linkage agreements already developed to provide a host of services. The most important thing that we think is, one, to assist the tenants in maintaining and retaining affordable housing, staying in their apartments, do not lose their jobs. So we're going to provide employment retention services, financial services. We have linked up with 2 particular individuals from the Wall Street area who are going to come to the facility once it's developed to provide ongoing services free of charge to the tenants of the building. Everything from case management is going to be provided, mental health services, education, health, cancer awareness, things of that nature.
Commissioner Dwight.
Just a question. So it's very rare that I get an email from the Borough President's office calling the project wonderful, and this one did get it, but they did query the retail ground floor space if there's an opportunity for a locally based cultural facility to be in tenancy. So can someone speak to that?
Hi, yeah. We haven't identified a tenant yet, but the Brownsville plan that was recently facilitated by HPD with community stakeholders identified several retail and community facility use gaps, including fitness centers, arts and cultural institutions, after-school programs, financial institutions. We always aim to work with a local partner. So over the course of the development period, we will be reaching out to different stakeholders groups to find out who might be interested in using this space. We've also been in touch with East Brooklyn congregations, who helps us connect with various local partners that might want to use the community accessories facility space.
Certainly, I'd encourage you to reach out to the Borough President's office and echo his comments. Wonderful. So,
Great. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Levin. I have 2 questions, one, including one about the architecture. But my first question is, who is Edwin? A question on the minds of all of the commission.
Everybody asks me, who's Edwin? Edwin was a very, very good friend of mine. He was a social worker, a father, husband. Years ago, when HIV and AIDS first came out, he was one of the advocates in the community who advocated for supportive housing. When Edwin passed away, we decided that we wanted to do something to remember him. And because he advocated for HIV and AIDS and substance abuse, we decided that the project would be named after him, and that's how we became Edwin's Place.
Thank you. And then if I may, my design question. First off, I can't avoid noticing that we have 2 projects from your firm on our agenda today at either end of the income bands. Later, we're going to be talking about your firm's building at 220 Central Park South, something else altogether. But it's just wonderful to see your firm also working on projects like this. My question is about the rear of the building and what design measures you will take to have this meet the very low-scale Nehemiah houses that fill the rest of the block. That's obviously a design challenge, but I'm sure you're up to it.
Sure. So yes, thank you for the question. A couple things we're doing. One is that the bulk of the building is to the south of the site towards the train yard, and so, or the elevated train, so that the rear of the building, the rear of the lot is predominantly open, and so there's a landscaped open space in the rear. Additionally, there are windows from the units that are on the upper levels that face into that, face that direction, and we're treating that elevation the same as we're treating the front elevation that faces the street. So it'll have a similar metal bay windows and brick banding details that face the street.
Thank you. Other questions? Well, thank you to the applicant team. Those are the only speakers who have signed up to speak, but if there are any others present who would want to speak, please come forward. Okay, the public hearing on this matter is closed.
Borough of Brooklyn, calendar numbers 25 and 26. CD2, number 25, C170400ZMK, number 26, N170401ZRK. Public hearing in the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning Tillery and Prince Street rezoning.
We will have a 10-minute presentation by the applicant team, which is comprised of Nora Martins, Emmanuel Del Mori, and Ed Brown.
Good morning, Chair Lago, Commissioners. My name is Nora Martins from Ackerman LLP, speaking on behalf of the applicant YYY Brooklyn NY LLC. I'm joined by Emmanuel Diamore from Off-Gang Architects, the project architect, and Ed Brown from Team Brown Consulting, who will also speak as part of this presentation. Other members of the development team are also in attendance and available to answer any questions the commissioners may have, including the project's environmental consultant, Sam Schwartz Engineering. The applicant here is requesting approval of 3 land use actions, including a zoning map amendment to rezone the project area from an R6 zoning district to a C64 zoning district, a zoning text change to Appendix F to designate the project area as a mandatory inclusionary housing area, option 1, and then a zoning text change to Appendix E, the special downtown Brooklyn district maps to include the project area within the special downtown Brooklyn district and within the Flatbush Avenue extension height limitation area. These land use actions would facilitate the development of 2 new mixed-use buildings at the proposed development site, containing approximately 262 units, with 25% of the floor area, or approximately 79 units, permanently affordable at an average of 60% of the area median income, as well as local commercial uses on the ground floor. The applicant is comprised of 2 developers, Mad Equities and Joy Construction, with substantial development experience, including development of approximately 2,000 affordable housing units, as well as several market-rate commercial and hotel developments. As you can see on the area map, the rezoning area is located at the intersection of Tillery Street and Prince Street in the downtown Brooklyn neighborhood of Community District 2. The rezoning area includes Lot 100, which is the development site, Lot 104, which is the corner property, and a portion of Lot 1 on Block 2050. The development site, as I mentioned, is Lot 100, which is L-shaped with frontages on both Tillery and Prince Streets, although it's not the property on the actual corner of the block. It's approximately 19,500 square feet in lot area. The site is currently improved with a 5-story self-storage facility that is overbuilt and non-conforming in the existing R6 zoning district. This corner is not well lit or maintained, and there's very little activity at the street level. The development site is adjacent to an 8-story community facility building, which is occupied by 2 nonprofit homeless shelters on the actual corner of Tillery and Prince Streets, as well as to the Ingersoll Houses Nypd development, which occupies the remainder of the subject block. The rezoning area is currently zoned R6, and this application proposes to extend the existing C64 zoning district and special downtown Brooklyn district that is located just across Prince Street from the development site. Emmanuel Diamore will now briefly describe the proposed development and proposed improvements subject to NYCHA approval on the adjacent Ingersoll Houses property, followed by Ed Brown, who will speak briefly about the proposed local employment and job training program.
Hi, good morning. My name is Emmanuel Diamor from Afghan Architects. So we're proposing 2 structures. One is a 23-story high, 235 feet high, located on Tillery Street. The other one is a 21-story, 215 feet high, located on Prince Street. It's about 220,000 square feet of residential, 14,000 square feet of commercial on the ground floor, and a parking in the cellar for about 44 parking spaces. So it's about 262 dwelling units. 25% will be studios, 45% one bedrooms, 15% two bedrooms, and 15% three bedrooms. The facade facing the Ingersoll houses, they'll be designed to be open and invited to the existing adjacent neighbors, as well as we intended to provide a landscape area between the two properties to make it accessible and invited to the adjacent neighbors. At the same time, we intended to replace their existing garbage containers to a refrigerated system that will benefit both properties. Ed Brown.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Ed Brown. I'm the president of Team Brown Consulting. I'm a construction manager by trade. I'm a former public housing resident, and I started my firm because I saw the need for the opportunity for public housing and local residents to be involved in these employment opportunities on a lot of these projects that are happening in Brooklyn, not just Brooklyn, but all over. And I was brought on board to handle the workforce development. We also do WMBE compliance. We do Section 3. Some of our great successes are the Dock Street project with 2 trees, BAM South. We're currently in negotiation for Domino Sugar. Slate Property Group project on 345 Lafayette in Brooklyn. And City Point in Brooklyn. And also the Ingersoll project by BFC Partners, the first project taking place in public housing. Basically, I really commend these developers for taking the opportunity to provide resources and economic development opportunities for the residents of public housing. As I said, I'm a former public housing resident myself. I'm a former tenant leader for 6 years in public housing. And there was a need, and I filled that need, and I take this very seriously, and I really believe that, they're going to do what they say they're going to do, and we're going to hire residents, and they're going to get an opportunity not only to work, but also have an opportunity to possibly get some of the affordable housing units inside the development.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
The proposed rezoning and related text amendments will facilitate the replacement of the existing non-conforming self-storage facility, which generates approximately 2 jobs, with a development that provides much-needed housing, including 79 permanently affordable units and local commercial uses. The proposed development will be consistent with surrounding development in downtown Brooklyn. You can see from the area map across Prince Street and south of Tillery, there are several 30 to 40-story buildings recently developed or in development, and a proposed development that will be more compatible with and sensitive to the adjacent Ingersoll houses. The proposed development will also provide, as Ed Brown discussed, opportunities for local employment, which the developer will actively pursue. This application received approval with conditions from Community Board 2 and the Brooklyn Borough President, as well as a letter in support from the Ingersoll Houses Tenants Association. I believe the Commission should have copies of all of those. And that concludes our presentation today, and we look forward to answering any questions the Commission may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martins. Questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Dweck.
Thank you. So I'll obviously defer to my colleague, Commissioner Delauze, on the affordability and MIH. Speaking to the Borough President's recommendations that you mentioned, it's a recurring theme. On the ground floor space, the 13,723 square foot, I note that the Tenants Association recommends, and he's on board with that, for a medical or a child care facility. Can you talk to the Commission about what your if you've had any discussions with the operator for that space, and if not, and if in the event that you can't come to a conclusion with a facility of a medical facility or child care facility, obviously the Borough President recommends a cultural facility from a locally based group. So can you speak to those recommendations?
Sure. Since the beginning of the process, it originally envisioned as a local retail or community facility type use. Through discussions with the Ingersoll Houses Tenants Association, a need for daycare or medical office space was identified, which we are fully committed to investigating the feasibility of those options. This developer does have daycares in several other developments, and it makes perfect sense given the proximity to the Ingersoll Houses. So with regard to that, we are absolutely committed to seeking out those types of uses, as well as if those types of tenancy are not feasible, looking at a cultural use as suggested by the Borough President.
Thank you.
Commissioner De La Hoz.
Sorry. We have a lot of paper up here. I'm just wondering, the Borough President had a number of points in his recommendation about exceeding the MIH requirements, considering the increase in density that's proposed here, also reaching for deeper affordability. There have been a number of projects in Community Board 2, and I think part of the concern has to do with depending on what the ultimate mix is in terms of the affordable housing units, you may actually, the community has seen a number of units within the 60 to 80% of AMI band, and so one of the things, as you answer this question, one of the things I would also recommend is that you follow up with HPD and find out, excuse me, what the response has been to those affordable housing lotteries within the various income bands as part of your targeting to help better meet where the gap is that exists specifically within the community board. And that actually speaks to the third recommendation that the Borough President made, which was about increasing the percentage of units that are 2 and 3 bedrooms. So I'm wondering if you could speak to that, and then if I may, Chair, I have some other questions about the discussions with the local tenants association.
Sure. So this is a privately financed development. The 25% MIH units, which are going to be at an average of 60% AMI with at least 10% of the floor area at 40% AMI, will be cross-subsidized by the market rate housing. We can have discussions with HPD as to the response to the housing lottery and the need for the lower income. I mean, that is the reason why option 1 was selected for the MIH designation. And we can see what the possibilities are to reach those lower income bands in this project.
Are you, sorry, I seem to be losing my voice. Are you open to exceeding the total percentage over 25% affordable?
At this point, 25% is what's feasible, but we can take a look at that. It would depend on if there's financing available from HPD on that project. And
given the market in the area, I don't think that would be necessary. The other question I have is, I think it's great that you all have come to terms with the Tenants Association in terms of the refuse space. I'm just wondering, how is that going to work moving forward? Who's going to maintain it? I guess I'm a little confused as to where it will be, I understand how it benefits the overall neighborhood, but it would just be helpful to have a little bit more information on that, and then a bit more information perhaps from Mr. Brown about the recruitment and the training and the hiring of local residents.
Sure. Let me speak to your first question. So if you can see from the site plan here, this portion of the rezoning area is NYCHA property. It's currently used by the self-storage facility pursuant to a license agreement. For parking, it's fenced off. So landscaping would be, again, subject to NYCHA consultation and approval because this is their property, but funded by the developer. A landscaped open space improvement on the Tillery Street frontage, and then on Prince Street, currently garbage is kept there unenclosed. Odors are a big concern, especially during the summer months. So there's several different types of systems available, but it would be enclosed and refrigerated to allow for, to keep that from being so noxious to the neighbors. Again, we've spoken to NYCHA about this. They're aware of the proposal. Any work that would actually be done would be subject to their approval, and we would have to have that discussion on who would be responsible for the ongoing maintenance, given that it is their property. But the improvements would be funded by the developer.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And then perhaps Mr. Brown could speak to, I'd love to learn more about the kinds of outreach his organization does to local residents and the preparation, the kinds of training that are provided to help people access jobs.
Sure. One of the unique abilities we have is that we previously worked on the Ingersoll-Whitman redevelopment project in 2010, 2009. So we have a database already of eligible residents ready to go to work, both skilled and non-skilled. And we actually have those that are OSHA trained already, those who need OSHA training. So as far as the outreach, we already have our finger on the pulse in that development in that area from the previous work that we've done already. So it's just a matter of meeting with the contractors, finding out what trades are available, and just finding the right people and just placing them.
Great. And if I might, do you already have a written agreement with the developer?
Yes,
You do.
yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Levin. Yes, I have a land use question, and it has to do with the out parcel that it's at the corner of Prince and Tillery. Our information is that it's currently occupied by 2 shelters for homeless. That site will be included in the rezoning. So my question is whether there's any relationship between the ownership of the developer and the ownership of that parcel. And my ultimate concern is about the development pressures that this might put on that site, since it will have a much greater development potential after the rezoning. And, does that put those shelters at risk?
Sure. So there is no relationship between the owner of the development site and the corner parcel. Currently, that building is built. It's 8 stories. It's a significant development. It's not really likely to be a soft site, especially given they have I think I'd have to confirm the exact term that's left, but I think under a 20-year contract, lease, and then they have a contract with DHS to provide those services. They're also, nonprofit homeless providers, so it's not a residential building that's being used for homeless housing, so they are mission-driven, and I think the commitment is to maintain that homeless housing at that site.
Okay, does the not-for-profit own the building, or is it privately owned?
No, it's privately owned.
Privately owned by somebody else?
Right, but I'll confirm there is a lease that I believe is 20 years with the nonprofit provider.
Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant team? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in support is Darrell Burgess.
Good morning. My name is Darrell Burgess, and I'm the Vice President of the Ingersoll Resident Association. First, let me start off by saying there's a number of projects that has been going up in Ingersoll for a number of years without informing the Resident Association. These are the first developers that came to the Resident Association prior to the project being built, prior to anything going up. We sat down and discussed opportunities for residents within our development and what was needed in our development to help with resources and other things that would benefit our residents. I believe it's imperative for any project that's being built to engage with the Resident Association leaders of that particular development or organization, because we have a very large development, over 1,800 apartments, and there's a lot of needy families for jobs, residency, and opportunities to make themselves become greater. With this development, they also offered the removal of a waste, garbage, which is right next to my building. And I can tell you, during the months of the summer, it's hazardous. The smell, the sight, the rats, it's terrible. And for them to offer an opportunity to refrigerate that storage space without any cost to NYCHA is a wonderful opportunity, not only to the development, but to NYCHA as well. Also, they're extending their hand and making us a partnership, whereas we have our annual family days every year, and we offered them to be a part of it. And as well as any events that they offered our residents the same and equal. So with that being said, I would like to thank these developers for giving us an opportunity, number one, and for establishing a partnership, a long-term partnership, because I believe resident engagement goes a long way, especially when you have residents who don't come out. You have new residents that are not familiar with the neighborhood. They see new buildings go up. It's fair to a lot of our residents because they've been living in NYCHA developments for a very long time. and they see something new go up. And a lot of them are afraid of change. We have a large number of seniors. We have a very large community of children. And this is a great opportunity to engage these young folks to get involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Yes, Commissioner Efron, if you wouldn't mind taking a question.
Thank you so much for making the time to come down and speak
You're very
today.
welcome.
I do have a question about the NYCHA-owned space that's adjacent, what was being referred to as the public green space, or I have the terminology wrong, but basically where the trees and plantings might go. Has that been brought before your tenant association? Has there been anything you'd like to share with us about that from the point of view of your
About that
committee?
space, the waste? Yes. I've witnessed for myself, even at the closure of the NYCHA business, there are other outsiders that use that for dumping grounds. It's fenced in, but they dump all type of debris, garbage. I worked in the medical field. I've seen hazardous waste dumped there, which endangers our community. We have young children who are very curious, you know, and they walk over. It's open space, so it's entitled for anyone to, you know, you can inhale something, you can step on something. It's so much that can cause harm to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Commissioner Deleuze.
Mr. Burgess, thanks for being here. I'm just wondering, especially since you're lauding the developer, I'm just wondering, of the commitments that they made, have they been made in writing to the Tenants Association?
Yes, they have. Yes, they did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in support is James Brown.
He was just available for any questions, so I don't think that'll be
okay.
necessary.
Okay, so those are the only people who have signed up to speak on this matter. If there are other folks in the audience who would like to speak, please make your way forward. The public hearing is closed.
Borough of Brooklyn, calendar numbers 27 and 28. CD5, number 27, C170430ZMK, number 28, N170431ZRK. Public hearing. In the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning Linden Boulevard rezoning.
Our first speaker in support is Lisa Orantia.
Good morning. Lisa Orantia from Ackerman LLP. We're the land use attorneys for the applicant, Canyon Sterling Emerald. And this is an application seeking a zoning map amendment and zoning text amendment in connection with the proposed development of vacant block 4496. I'm here today with Daniel Rad, a principal at Radson Development, representing the applicant, and Rachel Simpson from Magnuson Architecture and Planning. They're both available for questions. The block is currently zoned R4 with a C12 overlay. It's 100 feet deep from Linden Boulevard. And the proposal is to change to an R8A with C24 overlay over part of the lot, an R7A and an R6A. The zoning text amendment would designate the area as a mandatory inclusionary housing area. The proposed development will consist of 4 buildings containing residential, retail, and community facility uses with 100 accessory parking spaces. All of the 521 residential units will be affordable pursuant to a regulatory agreement with HPD and HDC, with 30% of the residential floor area, which is about 157 dwelling units, designated as permanently affordable to households with an average of 80% of area median income. The surrounding areas, the area is 1 block west of the Queensboro border and includes residential, community facility, and commercial uses. The site will be comprised of 4 tax lots. It's 100,000 square feet in the lot area, 200 feet of frontage on Linden and Loring Avenues, and 500 feet of frontage on Amber and Emerald Streets. The proposed development will contain 521 dwelling units. That's approximately 413,000 square feet of residential floor area, approximately 17,000 square feet of commercial floor area, and about 21,000 square feet of community floor area, and accessory parking spaces for 100 cars. There'll be open space consisting of about 16,000 square feet of landscape roofs and terraces, and about 1,200 square feet accessory to the residential use. Building 1 is a 12-story building. It will contain 235 dwelling units with space, commercial floor area, about 17,000 square feet of commercial floor area, and 13,000 square feet of space for parking. Building 2 will be an 8-story building with 109 dwelling units, about 7,000 square feet of community facility floor area, and...
Please conclude, and perhaps there'll be questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
The building 3 is 9-story, building 4 is 8-story. The text amendment will make options 1 and 2, MIH options 1 and 2 applicable. The benefits of the application is that it will allow for much-needed affordable housing as well as retail and community facility uses to serve the local community.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Commissioner De La Hoz?
How are you? I'm just wondering if you could speak to, you have a series of recommendations from both the community board and the borough president. On the community board, they asked for additional lighting around the perimeter, they're hoping that a daycare facility could be used, and then they had a point about the parking. I hope you could speak to that, and then I'll maybe turn to the borough president's recommendations if that's
Sure.
possible.
So on June 28th, the community board issued a conditional favorable recommendation. They asked for additional exterior lighting and safe access to the community facility use. The access to the community facility is going to be off Emerald Street. It's a fairly low traffic street, and it leads towards the more residential area of the neighborhood. The community facility will have its own entrance, and it'll be separate from the residential and retail entrances, and it'll be well lit for security. The comment about subsurface parking, there is proposed parking. It's at grade, and it's covered by a landscape terrace. It's going to be used as an outdoor recreation area. The soil composition and the height of the water table, which is 2 feet below surface, doesn't allow for cellar parking. And so that's why there's no area to put parking below the surface.
And was that explained to the community board? Because they
Yes,
say- okay.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's unclear, their statement about, they reference subgrade parking, but it's unclear whether they're just referring to the parking area in general.
Right, yeah, I was confused about that too, which is why I asked. Especially given the extent of affordability, subsurface parking seems like it would be cost prohibitive.
Right.
And then, if I may, the borough president asked about increasing the number of family-size units and about the possibility of supermarket space.
Right, so tenants haven't been selected yet, and the developer is open to receiving interest from a supermarket. And the mix of bedrooms is going to be determined by the regulatory agreement with HPD.
When do you hope to close the project?
I have December.
So you'll be finalizing that soon, perhaps before you get before city council.
Other questions? Commissioner Levin?
Yes, I have a program question and a land use question. Has the community facility operator been identified yet?
No, there hasn't been.
So then, do you have does the developer have general ideas about
Right, they're hoping to attract a daycare, professional office, or other nonprofit.
Okay. And then the land use question. This site is currently zoned, it's surrounded by R4 zoning districts, and you're proposing to make a substantial jump up to an R8A on Linden Boulevard and something less on the other side. I'm wondering if you could just lay out for us the land use rationale for this relatively larger density on this site, and also, as part of that, perhaps respond to the borough president's recommendation that the southern end of the building receive a lower zoning designation.
Sure, well, the majority of the bulk is going to be located on Linden Boulevard, which is a wide street, and it's the request from the borough president recommending that the city consider the R6B instead of the R7A. We believe the R7A is appropriate on Loring. Loring is 70 feet wide, and the houses on the opposite side of the street are set back at least 15 feet, the three-story houses. There's also a grade elevation change so that the site is located approximately 7.5 feet lower at its lowest point, southeast corner. And so it reduces the perceived height of the new development on that side. The community board understands the need for the significant amount of affordable housing that the density will provide here. If the zoning were to be downsized, if the district were to be lowered, then we would lose approximately 64 affordable units. And the EAS concluded that there would be no significant adverse shadow impacts. And of course, being on the south side of the street, we don't expect any shadows to be cast in that direction. There's also a range of densities in the area so that you'll find 5-story buildings, 8-story, even 17-story buildings in the surrounding area. And the applicant worked closely with the city to develop an appropriate zoning designation that would fit within the context and also provide the necessary number of units.
Commissioner Efron.
Thank you for the land use rationale. I noticed that the program we have is diagrammatic or schematic and not the building materials that we've previously received. So I'm wondering if the ones we were given earlier is the intended skin of the building. And the reason I ask is that the treatment, particularly on the non-Linden Boulevard facades of the building, becomes more relevant when it's significantly taller in height than the residential buildings, I guess, in the picture to the right, and to the right on the southern end, or the back end of the building. Could somebody just speak to whether the building materials will be consistent all four facades of the building, and if in fact what we've been looking at is what's intended for it?
Yes, so Rachel Simpson, project architect, will address that.
Could you go up to the microphone, Ms. Simpson? Thank you.
Certainly. Can I take it with me and walk? Okay, great, thank you. Let's see here. I think this is the best spot for me. I'll come right around to the front here. There we go. Woo, think skinny.
Way down.
Thank you, Tom. This rendering that you're looking from the northeast corner, standing along Linden Boulevard here. This street going back is Amber Street. So this rendering shows the larger bulk of the development along Linden, stepping back down along the Amber, and it'll be mirrored on Emerald Street there, with an intention that there's this 5-story street wall that sets back then to help reduce the presence of bulk on those streets in a more residential way. We're looking to break up that street wall in certain ways as well to reduce the mass of the building. Does that help explain the question?
I just noticed that the facade at street level changes. I'm wondering what the material change is and
we're intending to have a unified material palette throughout with more brick at street level and these other brick and paneled, so that we're hoping that the materials would be very similar throughout. We don't intend a change
so
in
the
material.
white isn't a change in material.
This here, no, that's just a matter of the shadows. It should be, it's very similar to the other materials there as well.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, so those are the only speakers that we have registered for this matter. As always, if there is anyone in the audience who wants to speak, please make your way forward. The public hearing on this application is closed.
Citywide, numbers 29 and 30. Citywide number 29, N170425ZRY. Number 30, N170425AZRY. Public hearing in the matter of applications for zoning text amendments concerning the self-storage text amendment. Notice, a public hearing is being held by the City Planning Commission in conjunction with the above ULURP hearings to receive comments related to a draft environmental impact statement. This hearing is being held pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act and the City Environmental Quality Review.
And I'll note for the commissioners that as we had a presentation by the city planning team at the review session, we'll just go directly to the speakers from the public. Our first speaker on this matter in support is Charles Montjuic. Thanks.
Thank you for having me. My name is Charles Montjuic. I am the owner of a 90,000 square foot warehouse at 2300 Linden Boulevard. Ever since this moratorium on storage units has been put in place, it's been a very, very difficult situation to sell my building. I've had plenty of interest from storage facilities, storage companies who have wanted to come in and make a transaction. We've gotten agreements, and because of this moratorium, nobody would go forward, and I've lost out on opportunity to sell the building to storage units, and it's becoming a very difficult situation because of the size of the building to sell it to other companies around, considering a lot of companies in that industrial area are leaving the area because of pricing and business being not as strong and going out to New Jersey. I just wanted to come today and say that it has been a very limiting factor in being able to do any kind of transaction and a hardship on my business now because I cannot move this piece of real estate.
Thank you, Mr. Montjuic. Questions? Commissioner Efron.
Hi. Some of us read in national newspapers that there's an increase in interest by Amazon-type warehouse operations for more warehouse space within the 5 boroughs. Have you seen anything to bear out that market?
I have seen that, but the Amazon type of operations are looking for larger facilities and not in the East New York area. So.
Yes, Commissioner Deleuze.
I just pulled your building up on the internet, so I had a visual of what was going on here. So, so how long have you owned your building?
I've owned the building since 1973.
Okay, wow. And what's been the primary use since you've owned it?
We use the building as I'm a wholesale toy distributor.
Okay.
And we are changing our operation don't necessarily have a need for a warehouse operation anymore. So I'm trying to move my real estate and sell it and whatnot. And I've been on the market for about 2.5 years now.
Okay.
And we have had, excuse me, as I said earlier, interest from some national and public storage companies to come in with much interest. And once we've gotten to the point of not knowing what's happening with the moratorium, everybody sort of backed out because no one's going to pull permits and start doing things without knowing what's going to happen. So in that respect, it has hurt me and hindered me in doing transactions and being able to go forward.
Did you have any interest from someone who wanted to continue a more industrial use for the property?
For myself?
When you put the building on the market 2.5 years ago, was there any interest for folks who wanted to have an industrial use rather than a storage use?
Yes, but for the building's just too large for a lot of people that want to continue as an industrial use.
Okay. And you're within the IBZ?
Yes, I'm on Linden Boulevard between Essex and Linwood.
Thank you.
Other questions from Mr. Marchik? Thank you. I'll just make 2 notices before we start with a number of other speakers. One is to assist the stenographer, if you could please speak quite close to the microphone. And the second is just to remind people that testimony is limited to 3 minutes per person. And our next speaker in opposition is John Darrell.
Good morning. My name is John Darrell. I'm the Vice Chairman of the New York State Self-Storage Association. While the proposed zoning has been typically characterized as an effort to increase the job-generating potential of the land in the IBZs, such characterization is really based on flawed assertions. First of all, that self-storage is a low job-generating use. While self-storage facilities don't necessarily employ a lot of people on site themselves, they do support many of other off-site jobs. Second, that the proposal's preferred industrial uses would replace self-storage sites, even though there's not really any data to support that. Self-storage facilities play a critical role in the city in terms of supporting businesses. They provide affordable and flexible storage solutions for small businesses. In the IBZs, self-storage supports industrial and commercial businesses. Self-storage allows businesses quick and direct access to their inventory, to their equipment, and to their supplies. And businesses must be close to their storage. If businesses had to travel far for their storage, they would incur additional costs, including fuel, tolls, and time lost. The Department of City Planning acknowledges that businesses use self-storage. Approximately 1/3 of self-storage facilities are consumed by business customers. That means that even a small 35,000 square foot self-storage facility can directly support as many as 100 small businesses and their associated employees. While self-storage facilities may not have many employees of their own on site, they do therefore directly support tens of thousands of businesses in the city and therefore tens of thousands of employers across the city. The department says that businesses could use warehousing instead of self-storage, but that's not a realistic solution for many small businesses. Most small businesses can't afford large warehouse space and lengthy long-term commitments to warehouse contracts. They need the month-to-month flexibility and the quick and direct access and the ability to flex their space up and down based on the demands of their business. Current zoning already limits where self-storage can locate in the city. This proposed action would further eliminate almost half of the available space that's available for self-storage building, and it would significantly harm the self-storage business, and the DEIS acknowledges that. The DEIS also acknowledges that the proposal will not actually spur industrial development. Since self-storage facilities actually support businesses, and the zoning proposal wouldn't create any additional industrial space, the city's proposal is flawed, and it should not move forward at all. The text amendment would impose generic and ineffective zoning broadly across all of the boroughs. The department's recently released an A-text that would partially mitigate the devastating impact to the self-storage industry, And that ATEX is progress. It's a step in the right direction. We believe it requires some amendment, and our counsel, Fox Rothschild, will speak about the ATEX.
Questions for Mr. Darrell? Commissioner Deleuze.
Thanks for coming. I just wanted to kind of go into, one, your acknowledgement about the job piece specifically to self-storage. Is there a ratio of square footage per job in the self-storage industry that would be helpful for us to know? How many jobs per square feet of self-storage do you generally create outside of the supporting of the folks that are perhaps leasing from you?
We could do the math on that. I mean, again, if we take a 35,000 square foot facility that supports as many as 100 businesses, and you assume that each of those businesses employs 3 people, you're talking about 300 people per.
I guess I'm just asking specific that your industry supports. I mean, that you are actually on your payroll, basically.
But we don't dispute the DEIS estimate of 5-ish people per a typical self-storage facility. Some have more, some have less. That's, there's no use quibbling over 5 or 10 or whatever. So I think that's in the range.
And how is it determined that approximately a third of the space within existing self-storage facilities are supporting other small businesses?
Yeah, so the reason, first of all, it's hard to get exact numbers because many small businesses are registered for self-storage use under personal social security numbers and so on. But we know that there are certainly a percentage of businesses in some facilities, as many as 20 or 25%, that are registered under business entities, and it's a matter of the operators knowing who's using their facility, and typically the business operators are the ones that visit the facilities on a more frequent basis, so they get to know the operators, they get to know, the owners get to know the operators of the businesses in a much better way.
And if I might, one of the things that came up when this originally was certified about changing trends in the industry, especially I guess more for the non-business customer, of picking up belongings and then, delivering them to a storage facility. And that would really kind of change the demand, if you will, to have storage facilities within certain areas of the city. So I'm just wondering if you could speak to that trend within the industry and what's the prediction on that?
I can. I have done a lot of work on this, actually. It's called on-demand storage or valet storage or full-service storage. And it's actually a version of warehousing. It's not self-storage. And there are a number of operators in New York City who are providing such service. There's really only one right now who has established enough capacity where they can actually service the demand. Most of these operators have not built up the logistics framework to be able to really do the business. And that one operator that has built the logistics capability is underperforming significantly. Their online social reviews are terrible, actually, because they end up losing property, and it takes a long time for customers to get their property back. The most important thing is that customers have to pay for the deliveries. So there's a customer that's an appropriate solution for. Customers who wish to sock their belongings away for an extended period of time and don't want to visit the storage facility, and they don't need frequent access to their property. The valet storage business is a viable option, and it probably will have some future, but there's a significant number of customers who use self-storage, who use it as an accessory, whether they're personal customers or business customers. They use it as an accessory to their home or their business property, and they therefore need to visit the storage facility on a very regular basis, and they want control and access and availability to their goods that on their own time.
Commissioner Efron.
Thank you. If you could just help with a few questions around industry trends, that would be so helpful. One is what percentage of the self-storage operators own or long-term net lease their buildings? And the second question is whether the rates for self-storage have increased, and if so, by what percentage?
I don't know the answer to the first question. It's something I could probably find out, although a number of, the huge majority, 80%-ish of operators in the self-storage industry are small mom and pop operators and therefore private companies, and that information is very hard to come by. Secondly, as far as rates, rates in general, particularly in New York City, have gone up over time, and it's our position that this proposal would mark a point where rates would go up significantly for both business customers and individual customers, because the supply would be restricted. Supply in New York City in general is well under the national average. In fact, it's about half of the national average. And so with supply already lagging behind demand, prices have certainly gone up. And we would hate to see that curve take another northerly turn.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Dario? Yes, Commissioner Cirillo.
Thank you, Mr. Dario. And perhaps this is a question that may be more informed by the council. I think you said the council will be speaking shortly, but perhaps you have a take on this too. With respect to the A text, which I know you refer to as sort of a step in the right direction, so we'll focus on that for a moment, since that's also a consideration of ours in this process. Do you know, or has there been any assessment of what the A text provides to limit the proposed limitation, or mitigate, depending on how you look at the terminology, the limitation proposed in the original text, and how that would work based on your understanding of the communities you're in and the siting requirements you look for now, and let's say the feasibility of doing business with what space would be left. And I raise that because I was actually surprised on Monday to learn what the average size of a self-storage facility was. I envisioned them much larger than they actually were, because they just seemed to be that, and I used one myself in my life. But I just wonder what you think. I mean, I'm glad to hear step in the right direction, because that's a positive thing. And again, maybe there's more analysis of that will come later in testimony. But I just wondered, from your point of view now, understanding the industry as you do, how you think that works practically.
Right.
It would be helpful in terms of your take on that.
Sure. First of all, your experience isn't unusual. I mean, there's a couple of facilities in highly visible places that look very large, but they definitely don't represent the majority of the facilities. So your point is well made. Without the A text, the special permit process alone, we take the position that would be a de facto ban on self-storage. As you heard from the last speaker, there's not much appetite for a long drawn-out special permit process. So having conditions such as those provided in the A text, even though we believe that there's more flexibility needed in those conditions, would at least provide some as of right options that wouldn't get in the way of the long drawn out special permit process. I definitely am not qualified to speak in more detail about the details of the A text. I think I'll leave that to Fox Rothschild, who will speak next, if that's okay.
Certainly, I appreciate that, thank you.
Of course.
Commissioner Levin. Well, just following up on that for a second, the A text would essentially put self-storage operators also in the business of being landlords to industrial spaces. From your knowledge of the operator community, are they equipped to do that?
There's some who will, some who won't. Absolutely, it's a good question. It's certainly a condition that limits will limit the competition for sites and
chip away at the non-industrial areas of the city. And at some point, you begin to undermine the operational capacity of the city. You know, this is, if you look at Jerome Avenue, Atlantic Avenue, East New York, these were all concentrations of the auto industry, right? Eventually, where are they all going to go? We've continued to pack things into fewer and fewer areas, and this is kind of another example of that. So I think we've got to get much more serious about how we preserve space for that sort of back office, you know, infrastructure type functions.
Do you see improvements in the current situation? Do you have recommendations regarding improvements in the current situation, other than merely saying, put it away?
Certainly about other non-industrial, we do have a series of recommendations that we've worked with the whole coalition that Armando spoke about earlier of what non-industrial uses should not be allowed in the industrial areas.
And do you know whether that was available to those who drafted the new A text?
I assume they were. They actually were reflected in the original policy papers of this administration. You know, there is a policy paper that the de Blasio administration put out about what a progressive industrial development agenda would look like, and a lot of them are contained there.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Friedman. I think you tied Mr. Dario for the longest time at the lectern. Our next speaker in opposition to the A text is Justin Collins.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to take part in this conversation. My name is Justin Collins. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships and Development at the Southwest Brooklyn Industrial Development Corporation, or SBIDC. We manage the area's industrial business zone and run the Brooklyn Workforce One Industrial and Transportation Career Center. As providers of both industrial business and workforce development services, we have serious concerns about the proliferation of self-storage facilities and other incompatible uses in the city's M-designated districts. Self-storage facilities in manufacturing zones pose a major threat to Brooklyn's industrial economy. They take up large plots of land that could instead house more job-intensive businesses and have been known to replace existing employers. Additionally, they encourage real estate speculation that makes it increasingly difficult for manufacturers to remain in Southwest Brooklyn. For these reasons in particular, we strongly support the original text amendment that would create a special permit requirement for future self-storage development in M-designated districts. We are opposed to the new text amendment A because it does not offer sufficient protections for industrial businesses against real estate speculation and incompatible use groups. There are 9 self-storage facilities located in the Southwest Brooklyn IBZ. 5 of these facilities are either less than a year old or currently under construction, including all 3 of the facilities in Sunset Park. The number of self-storage facilities in the IBZ has more than doubled in the past year. Industrial jobs offer strong opportunities for good wages and benefits, as well as strong career pathways that can lead to real economic mobility. When a self-storage facility is developed on property previously home to industrial business, it creates a net loss of jobs. Even if developed on vacant land, it precludes the creation of these industrial jobs. Furthermore, the presence of self-storage facilities in other non-industrial uses like hotels leads to real estate speculation, which pushes manufacturers to look elsewhere when locating their business. At SBIDC, we're often the first point of contact for businesses looking to expand or to relocate into Southwest Brooklyn. We believe there are many as-of-right businesses who are eager to invest in Southwest Brooklyn and to hire locally. While the current text amendment A appears to offer space for manufacturers, developers can easily avoid this industrial ground floor requirement as it sets a dangerous precedent that could easily be applied to other incompatible uses that can pay higher rents than industrial. Additionally, there's no clear enforcement mechanism to ensure that this industrial ground floor requirement actually houses industrial uses in perpetuity. As a result, this mixed-use provision does not promote the administration's goal of creating more affordable industrial space. The original amendment that called for special permit requirements on new self-storage units developed in M-designated districts is better suited to protect the growth of industrial and manufacturing businesses and jobs. SBIDC is happy to assist in the creation of proactive ways to protect New York's industrial and manufacturing economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Collins? Yes, Commissioner Levin. Mr. Collins, maybe just from your own experience in one particular IBZ, can you give us any information about land prices? And, I mean, you mentioned the concern that the self-storage, allowing self-storage facilities is leading to real estate speculation. Are the self-storage folks able to currently paying much higher land prices than other manufacturing uses? Have you seen transactions that can give us some market prices?
I don't have the market prices offhand. I will say that many industrial businesses have come to us, that are very interested in the area or interested in remaining in the area, as many of them are renters, and they're having a very tough time, with the rapidly increasing rents. I know several large buildings have gone for, inflated prices. Essentially, there was the Well Square building, I believe, went for $90 million, and we're also seeing former industrial businesses like the Davidson pipe space demolished and replaced by what's currently being constructed as a self-storage facility. So I don't have the prices offhand, but I have seen this trend, and our businesses have seen this trend of rapidly increasing prices, and it's going sort of right at the same time and correlating with the development of self-storage and hotels and other non-compatible uses.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Efron.
Thank you. Your colleague from the Brooklyn Chamber mentioned that some of the businesses they surveyed said that they really did need self-storage in order to operate. Has that been your experience with SUBTEC?
From our experience, we've seen more concern about the proliferation of self-storage spaces in the area from our industrial businesses. The Brooklyn Chamber is it's a great partner of ours. We work closely with them on many things, but that has not been our experience.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in opposition to the A text is Darrell Holland.
Good afternoon. My name is Darrell Holland. I'm the industrial business service provider through the BAC network for the Flatlands Fairfield Industrial Business Zone and the East New York Industrial Business Zone. I have two testimonies here today. One I read previously for the Flatlands Fairfield Industrial Business Zone I'm going to submit. I'm going to read a testimony here today that I signed up to read from my colleague who could not be here. His name is Quincy Ellicott. And in the opening remarks, it mentions what he does and everything. So if I have time to read the other testimony, I'd like to read it, but let me read this one. Where is Quincy Ellicott? Okay. My name is not Quincy Ellicott, but I'm reading his thing. Okay. My name is Quincy Ellicott. I work at the Business Outreach Center Network, and I am the industrial business provider for the Central Queens, which includes the IBZs of Steinway, Ridgewood, Woodside, and Maspeth. I am also the coordinator for the Maspeth Industrial Business Association. Manufacturing and industrial businesses in Maspeth, Ridgewood, Steinway, and Woodside provide tens of thousands of livable wage jobs for New Yorkers. These businesses are currently under tremendous pressure from the increase in real estate rents and as developers encroach on these areas with speculation of alternative uses. Requiring a special permit for self-storage development is an important first step to protecting and preserving these designated zones for their intentional use. It is also important to note that it is critical that the special permit is expanded to include other alternative uses such as hotels and event spaces in order to prevent the loss of businesses and stop the loss of livable wage jobs for these local communities. Once these jobs are gone, they will not be coming back. In the Maspeth IBZ alone, there are over 850 industrial businesses which provide over 15,000 jobs. Most of these businesses are small local businesses, and 75% of them have fewer than 20 employees. Many of these businesses have been operating in these areas for generations, and in some instances employ whole families. Manufacturing and industrial jobs in New York City pay workers an average of $50,000, much as what those same jobs workers would earn in the service industry. Many of these manufacturing and industrial jobs are accessible to the communities that surround the IBZ, as they do not require higher education, a requirement for most other livable wage jobs. I'm going to run out of time. Self-storage facilities in IBZs consume large swaths of land and provide very few jobs, of which most are low-paying service jobs. Self-storage facilities employ an average of only 5 people. The IBZs are designated for uses that encourage activities that are dense with quality jobs. As a profitable business model, a self-storage facility is also one of the unintended uses in the IBZs that contribute to the upswing in real estate prices. Ultimately, I support the spirit of the self-storage special permit and its intentions, which will directly preserve and protect the critical space that form the IBZs for the job-intensive activities and help combat a portion of the speculation of real estate in these areas.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Very
I'm ready to
efficient.
answer a lot of questions. I've been working in IBZs for a long time. Do you have any questions?
Questions for Mr. Holland? Yes, Commissioner Delaware.
Since you asked.
Yes, yes.
About how, in the IBZ that you work in, about how many self-storage facilities are there at this time?
Okay. The 2 IBZs I manage, there's 10, but I found another one the other day called Make Something, so there are now 11 in the 2. There could be more. Okay. So I can give you some parameters on. You asked about blocks and things like that. I did a survey.
Okay.
Okay. The 2 IBZs, the East New York IBZ is 49 acres. There's 2.25 acres is a city block. Okay? So there's 49 acres in that IBZ. In the Flatlands Fairfield IBZ, there's 210 acres, okay, or 200, no, I take it back. There's 100 acres in the I'm getting the street. There's 100 acres in the East New York IBZ, which is 49 blocks. There is 100 acres. There is 483 acres in the Flatlands Fairfield IBZ, which is 210 blocks. Okay? Now, altogether in the 2 IBZs, it's 583 acres. In that 583 acres, there's an average, there's 3,000 jobs in the East New York IBZ and 6,000 in the Flatlands Fairfield. These are EDC numbers. That's 9,000 jobs. When you add the acreage together and divide the blocks, it comes out to about 34 jobs a block, a square block. If you look at 10 storage facilities at 5 employees, that's 50 employees. That's 1 employee for every 5 square city blocks. Okay? So that's something I wanted to point out. And those numbers I can verify for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Other questions for Mr. Holland? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in opposition is Bryan Coleman. He signed up again. And then our next speaker in opposition is Maeve Marcello. Wait, signed up twice as well. Sorry about that. Okay, so those are all of the speakers who have signed up on this matter. If there's anyone else who is here who would like to speak, please make your way forward. Okay, I would note that on this matter, the record on this matter is going to remain open for another 10 days to receive comments on the draft environmental impact statement, and it will be open through Thursday, the 5th of September. And with that, this hearing is closed.
Borough of Manhattan, number 31, CD4 N170433ZRM. Public hearing in the matter of an application for a zoning text amendment concerning 661 8th Avenue signage text amendment.
If I could ask those leavings to please leave quietly as we're continuing with hearings. Okay, so our first speaker in support is Jack Hare.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and first off, I'd like to thank the Commission for the opportunity to present and for your consideration of our application. My name is Jack Carey. I'm a principal at Midtown Equities and one of the sponsors of the project. For those of you not familiar with Midtown Equities, we're an equity owner in many Manhattan projects, such as the World Trade Center. We're also the developer of in part of the World Trade Center. And we're also the developer of Empire Stores in recently completed in Brooklyn Bridge Park. We've worked very closely and appreciate all the support and cooperation from the city planning staff, as well as the community board and the borough president's office. City planning has been great in assisting us in moving this amendment forward through the pre-certification process, including providing improvements to the text amendment language. We've also worked very closely and established and maintained a great working relationship with the community board, and proud to have secured the support of not only their land use committee, but their board as well. I'm here today joined by Vivian Krieger, Land Use Counsel for our project, who's going to be walking you through the amendment.
Well, actually, first, if there are any questions for Mr. Carey? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in support is Vivian Krieger.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Vivian Krieger of Cozen O'Connor, Land Use Attorney for the applicant. The application before you is for a text amendment to modify the signage regulations for zoning lots in the 8th Avenue corridor of the theater sub-district of the Special Midtown District. We are proud to say that we have gotten the support of both the community board and the borough president, and speaking today in favor of the application will be Jesse Boudin, the district manager of Community Board 4. The project contemplates installing advertising signage above the existing two-story commercial building located at 661 8th Avenue, which is located on the northwest corner of 42nd and 8th. It's on this one. Okay. Sorry. So as you can see, the sign would face towards the Times Square area and away from the Special Clinton District and would not have any sound features. Allowing advertising signage here would be consistent with the existing signs on the 3 other corners of this intersection, which are all located within a C6-7 zoning district. Our corner is the only corner here located in a C6-4 zoning district, and it is also within a corridor that is subject to the regulations of both the Special Midtown District and the Special Clinton District. As far as we can tell, this corridor might be the only one that's within 2 special districts. A review of the history of the area explains why. In short, this corridor is the transition area between the high-density theater district, which promotes growth and development compatible and supportive of theater preservation, and the preservation area of the Special Clinton District. We worked very closely with the community board to tailor the language of the text so that while it allows for signage that is consistent with the 3 other corners, it is also sensitive to the residences to the north and west of the site by restricting the direction a sign may face, pointing it towards Times Square and away from the residences, and prohibiting any sounds. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Yes, Commissioner Efron.
Hi, as you probably heard, I brought up at the review session, I'm curious about the residential building directly behind the signs and whether there was any outreach and whether you have any knowledge about whether the apartments with the lot line windows have any other windows in them.
The certificate of occupancy for that building shows commercial use up through the 6th floor and residential above that. As Zola shows that the building was built in 1928, so it does predate the current zoning resolution, the current building code, and the multiple dwelling law. Those windows that face that side would be lot line windows, so any development there would require them to close it up. I am not aware of the actual uses in the building, and anecdotally, it was told to me that it was more commercial than residential, but I don't have the facts on that.
Other questions? Yes,
Yeah.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
I'm just curious as to why, what's your rationale for not having a restriction on the size of signs in contrast to the existing C64 restriction?
So the C64 allows for accessory signage but not advertising signage, and in thinking of the land use rationale and looking at the other the other 3 corners, which are all in the C67 district, we thought that it made sense to have that symmetry between the 4 corners, but wanted to be sensitive to that the transition area between Times Square and the Special Clinton District, to have it facing towards the intersection. And the concern, or that we were exploring was the actual effect of the light, and our lighting experts informed us that the size of it wouldn't change the impact of the reflection of the light.
Other questions for Ms. Krieger? Thank you.
We also have
Our next speaker.
We have Michael Keene here from Langen Engineering. I had him sign up in case there are any questions, but if not, we can turn it over to Jesse Boudin.
No, we actually, our next speaker in support is Michael Keene.
Yep, okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Michael Keene. I work for Langen Engineering. We're the environmental review consultants on behalf of the applicant supporting the land use application. The environmental assessment statement looked in particular at 3 technical areas: land use and zoning, urban design, and neighborhood character. The detailed assessment of these 3 technical areas showed that the proposed action would not result in any significant adverse impacts. And in fact, affirmatively, it demonstrated that the proposed action would be consistent with defining land uses in the area, the urban design character, as well as the overall neighborhood character. I believe it was June 19th where the negative declaration was issued.
Questions for Mr. Keene? Yes, Commissioner Cantor.
Thank you. I'd like to go back to the previous question regarding no height limit for the signage. What's your thinking on that? I mean, no height limit means no height limit to me as an engineer.
Well, I'm an urban planner, not an engineer, but a big difference. I think what the environmental review showed was that the proposed text amendment would facilitate signage on the northwest corner on the project site that would be consistent with the typical signage that you see at the corner of 42nd and 8th. I don't think that there was anything, that, at least in the environmental review, that demonstrated that this would be out of character with the surrounding environment.
Well, the unlimited height is out of character in the sense that they can build whatever they'd like. I mean, we have one sign called the old New York Times building. That's signage.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not suggesting that your client plans to do the same, but the way this is suggested to be written, he could. And that could take it out of character with the rest of the 4 corners. Could it not?
Right. So maybe Vivian, we did have some dimensional analysis. That
I'm afraid that we're
ties
not
it
able to return
okay,
to prior
sure,
speakers.
Sure. Okay. Okay.
Maybe you can
Say again?
Maybe you can get back to
Sure,
that
we can
item.
get back to you on that, sure, certainly.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Keen.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in support is Jesse Boudin.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jesse Boudin. I'm the District Manager for Community Board 4, and I will be providing testimony on behalf of the board today. On July 26, 2017, Manhattan Community Board 4 at its monthly full board meeting voted to recommend approval of the proposed text amendment. As already stated, the proposed text amendment would allow C67 signage rules with modifications to apply to the corner lot portions of zoning lots bounded by 2 wide streets within the western portion of the 8th Avenue corridor of the Theater Subdistrict. In particular, the amendment would facilitate the installation of advertising signage on the roof of an existing 2-story retail building located at 661 8th Avenue. CB4 met with the owners after a number of meetings and had 2 major concerns. One being that the sign did not impact the Special Clinton District, and 2, that the applicant worked with the city to mitigate an already existing unsafe pedestrian congestion in front of its property. In response, the applicant presented the board with a sign design that would face away from the Special Clinton District with no sound features. The applicant had agreed to correct any such unintended light pollutions by the signage in the future. And additionally, the board had also requested that the applicant, and they agreed to study a repositioning of the signage so it faces directly across 8th Avenue rather than at an angle down the avenue. I believe that study is still taking place or just finishing up. In regards to the sidewalk, if any of you have had the pleasure of being on 42nd Street and 8th Avenue at rush hour, you know very well that the way that the sidewalk is set up and the barricades, the fences there, basically force, I would closely say, probably a few hundred people a day out onto 8th Avenue traffic as they just try to get back into the Port Authority bus terminal. So the developer has engaged with DOT. If you go there now, it's a much different scene. If you got to see the photos already, the barricades are gone, and so there are I believe stone planters or some type of blockade to stop the traffic and allow pedestrians to walk down 8th Avenue in safety. Finally, the board would like just to thank the applicant for taking the time to meet with the board and research the needs of the neighborhood and subsequently support a community priority, which was an additional nonprofit dance and theater rehearsal space.
Thank you. Questions from Mr. Boudin? Commissioner Levin. We'll have a whole lot of questions about Community Board 4. What's happened?
I would expect nothing less. I hope I can answer them, and if I can't, then we will.
When this is referred out, I had a whole big eloquent argument about how this corner was different from the other 3 corners because it's the Special Clinton District. You guys don't even issue a peep. Guess I'm just not a Board 4 anymore. But actually, that gets
And we're glad
to,
you're here.
When the Hudson Yards rezoning was going forward, this corner was targeted for residential development. And it seems to me that this corner really wants to be redeveloped with housing or commercial. You know, it's not meant to be a placeholder for a billboard. And the value of that corner always was the billboard space on the L-shaped building. That's now going to be taken out of the billboard business, I guess. Our little cover sheet here has a picture of how it serves as a billboard. Did Board 4 think at all about, whether a sign here really is a good use of that prominent corner?
So we had numerous discussions with the owners and their representatives. I think the board's initial desire was for something on site and something more to a tune of affordable housing and or some type of structure there. After we explored that and kept on working on that, that was just not going to be something feasible. I mean, as explained to us, and so. For a number of reasons. We continue to work, and the issues that were still highlighted, that I highlighted, were the ones that we could sort of attach onto this project. So Yeah, no, but we definitely recognize that. The board is, I think, as you know, the board has long wanted something to be there that would be more substantial, of a built nature.
Well, I guess your testimony here today is testimony itself to the power of community engagement, and when a developer gets to work with a community, that there can be wins on all sides. Thanks for coming. Yes, Commissioner Efron.
But towards that community engagement, do you have any knowledge of whether the building owner, I assume it's a rental building, right behind this proposed billboard, came to community board meetings or has had any concern about those windows?
So I was actually unfortunately not at the committee meeting that when it was presented, I don't believe, but I can't speak for sure, but so I mean, what we normally do as a board, we obviously post, we have an email blast, we post, and so beyond that, I can't tell you whether the particular building owner was made aware, or if there are residents in that building, if they're made aware.
I do acknowledge their lot line windows. I'm just curious whether they came to any meetings.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Boudin.
Thank you very much for your time.
Our next speaker in support is Jefferson Mao.
Good morning, Chair Lago and Commissioners. My name is Jefferson Mao, and I'll be speaking on behalf of the Office of the Manhattan Borough President's Office. Our office is in favor of this text amendment to modify signage regulations to facilitate the installation of advertising signage at 661 8th Avenue. During the applicant's engagement process with the community, Manhattan Community Board 4 consistently expressed that their major concern...
Mr. Mao, would you be able to tilt the microphone? Thank you.
So, Manhattan Community Board 4 consistently expressed that their major concern was the impact of signage on the Special Clinton District. The applicant has agreed that any sign would face away from the Special Clinton District, would not have any sound features, and that they would remain in contact with CP4 in the future and correct any light intrusion as a result of the signage. We believe that it is sensible for any signage at this location to be directed towards the commercial areas to the east, rather than the residential units west of 8th Avenue in the Special Clinton District. We also join CB4 in thanking the applicant for their sustained engagement with the community and the Department of Transportation to expand the pedestrian space in front of 661 8th Avenue, and their support of nonprofit dance and theater rehearsal space in Clinton Housing Development Company's proposed cultural facility at 545 West 52nd Street. We find the text amendment to be appropriate and consistent with the goals of the special district and the zoning resolution, and we recommend its approval. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Mao. Question? Great, thanks. So that is the end of the speakers who have registered to speak on this item. And again, I'll ask if anyone in the audience is interested in speaking on this matter to come forward now. If not, the public hearing is closed.
Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 32. CD2, C170464ZSM. Public hearing in the matter of an application for the grant of a special permit concerning 449 Broadway.
Our first speaker in support of this item is Lisa Orantia.
Good afternoon, Lisa Orantia from Ackerman LLP, and here representing the applicant, 449 Broadway LLC. And in attendance is Casey Martinez. She's the Director of Development at United American Land LLC. She's here to answer any questions you may have. This is an application for a 74781 special permit for commercial use on the ground floor and cellar. The site is 5,000 square feet of lot area. It's 200 feet deep. It's a through lot with 25 feet of frontage on Broadway and Mercer. It's a M15B zoning district in the Soho Cast Iron Historic District. The building is a 5-story building with cellar. The application is concerning approximately 8,000 square feet on the cellar and first floor. The second through fifth floors will remain office use. The building was constructed in 1855, and its original purpose was for a store. The applicant purchased the property in 2010, and the cellar and ground floor have been vacant for approximately 7 years. Retail uses and service establishments are predominant along the streets. You see clothing stores, furniture stores, shoe stores, drug stores, and a bank. Zoning does not allow retail or office uses below the second story. Certain commercial and manufacturing uses are allowed as of right. The special permit allows a modification of use regulations as long as the owner makes a good faith marketing effort to find an as of right use for a fair market value. The requirements of this statute were achieved. The space was listed with 2 local real estate brokers at CPEX and Newmark since January 2016. Weekly ads were placed in the New York Post and the Villager from March 2016 to March 2017. Letters and phone calls were directed to 12 local and citywide industry groups in February and March of 2016, and no offers for as-of-right uses were received.
Questions for Ms. Orantia? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for staying.
Our next speaker in support of this item is Erica Baptiste.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Erica Baptiste, Urban Planner, here on behalf of the Manhattan Borough President's Office to express our concerns with this special permit and our support for this application. Recently, we did a windshield survey along Broadway between Canal Street and Grand Street, and we found that there were 5 vacant ground floor spaces. They're all advertising for retail tenants, and 2 of the buildings actually belong to the applicant. There are spaces also occupied as temporary spaces, including a pop-up store and a multi-vendor pop-up space. This trend supports a broader trend throughout the borough, identified in a survey our office did on retail vacancies along the entire length of Broadway in May 2017. And in this survey, we found 188 vacancies. These retail vacancies add to our continued concern with converting manufacturing space to retail use. High asking retail rents and the economic trends affecting retail stores are certainly playing a significant role. However, because the applicant seeks approval for a retail space that's smaller than most of the nearby vacant spaces and the block is nearly fully occupied, we are hopeful they will actually find a tenant. While not a factor that can be taken into account in this type of special permit, it should be considered when studying appropriate uses for the neighborhood as a whole. Regardless, because the applicant discussed this price with DCP and our office prior to its second good faith marketing period, because this space was originally designed as a commercial space, we believe in this instance the conditions for this special permit have been met. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baptiste. Questions?
Just one comment.
Commissioner Dweck.
The Borough President's office is in this building, the Manhattan. Do they know how to lower the air conditioning?
Commissioner Dweck speaks for all of us who are showing.
But anyway, it's good to see the Borough President support us.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Ms. Baptiste, as always.
Thank you.
So those are the only folks who have signed up to speak on this item. And again, I'll ask if there's anyone else who feels so moved to please come forward. If not, the public hearing on this application is closed.
And although this is not in my script, please note DCAS is actively looking into the air conditioning.
Helps to walk away. Losing sensation in my fingers.
Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 33, CD5, C170249, ZSM. Public hearing in the matter of an application for the grant of a special permit concerning 220 Central Park South parking.
And our first speaker on this item is Bob Flahive.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Bob Flahi from the firm Kramer 11. We represent the applicant for the special permit and curb cut certification that would permit a 64-space accessory parking garage in a 118-unit residential development on a through lot bounded by Central Park South, 7th Avenue, West 58th Street, and Broadway. As shown on your left, the development site has 75 feet of frontage on Central Park South, which is an R10H district, and 200 feet of frontage on West 58th Street, which is a C51 district. The development includes a 21-story street wall building on Central Park South and a 66-story tower on the West 58th Street portion of the site. There's a landscape motor court at the southeast corner, as shown on a graphic, that provides direct access to the lobbies of both Villa, as we call it, on Central Park South, and the tower lobby on 58th Street. Access to this motor court is provided by a 22-foot wide curb cut, which is near the eastern end of the project site. In addition to providing residents and guests with the convenience of being dropped off directly at their lobby, the motor court will eliminate the curbside pickup and attendant on-street queuing of vehicles that can disrupt traffic flow on 58th Street. The access to the proposed garage, which is the subject of the special permit, is also a 22-foot curb cut, but is located near the western end of the site. The curb cuts are separated by a distance of approximately 129 feet in order to minimize conflict, both in terms of the flow in and out with pedestrians as well as vehicular circulation. The development site had previously been occupied by 2 parking garages with a combined capacity of 173 spaces. These garages had a total of 3 curb cuts, totaling approximately 55 feet, all within a 75-foot segment of 58th Street. As I pointed out earlier, we have purposefully separated our curb cuts to eliminate potential conflicts. And in addition, we're reducing the number of curb cuts on a development site from 3 to 2, and also reducing the length from 56 feet to 44 feet. Submitted with the application is a letter from the New York City Department of Transportation in support of the request for the joint certification pursuant to zoning section 2615. The 64 spaces in an accessory proposed garage represents an increment of 40 spaces above what is permitted as of right. The residential growth parking analysis submitted with the application documents that even with the project, the residential growth parking ratio will be 16.5%, which is below the permitted 20% of the number of dwelling units added during what's called the 10-year look-back period. So we comply with that requirement. Sections 1345 and 13451 provide the Commission with the authority to permit parking facilities in a Manhattan core subject to certain findings. We believe that the materials submitted with this application provide sufficient documentation for the Commission to make each of the required findings and adopt a favorable report. I notice that the Borough President and the Community Board also both recommended approval. Members of the team here are available to answer questions.
Yeah, I'll note before opening it up to questions from the commissioners that we also have available for questions Jeff Rubin, the applicant, Seth Wright of Philip Habib, Mark Ricks of Vornado, and Gary Tarnoff from Kramer 11. And with that, I toss it open to the commissioners for questions. Thank you, Mr. Flahi.
Okay, you're welcome.
And our next speaker in support will welcome back Jefferson Mao.
Hi again. Still speaking on behalf of the Manhattan Borough President's Office. So the Borough President's Office has consistently called on DCP and CPC to consider a more robust set of factors in the parking methodology analysis. In particular, recommendations from our office on prior parking special permits have stressed the importance of considering the utilization rate of parking facilities prior to the 10-year look-back period. Without this data, there is doubt over the suitability of the 10-year look-back period as a benchmark for the appropriate number of parking spaces for a neighborhood today. Our office also believes that proximity to mass transit should be a major consideration of the parking methodology. In this case, the project site is well served by public transportation. Columbus Circle is one of the major transportation nodes of the city with ample access to subway and bus service. Given this location and considering the existing congestion of the surrounding area, our office is generally reluctant to recommend approval of additional parking spaces. However, we also recognize that there are different profiles for car users and that parking spaces can serve as storage for destination-based car usage that go beyond the reach of the public transportation system as opposed to everyday commuting within the city. While Columbus Circle provides ready access to the subway and bus system, the project site does not enjoy easy access to multiple regional transportation systems, as do some other parking special permit project sites that have come before our office. Thus, it seems to be an appropriate location for light destination-based car storage and usage. In the past, the Borough President has also expressed limited comfort with the notion that residents and owners tend not to use their cars on a regular basis, as opposed to commuters and other transient parking users. We acknowledge the point raised by CB5 that going from a public parking garage with 173 spaces to a residential parking garage with 64 spaces might well represent a net reduction in car usage and congestion. The applicant meets the individual findings for special permit, and our office believes that the 40 additional parking spaces would not unduly interrupt the flow of pedestrian traffic or result in undue conflict between pedestrian and vehicular movements or interfere with the functioning of the streets, create serious congestion, or otherwise substantially impact the neighborhood. So based on these findings, our office recommends approval of the special permit. However, we once again urge DCP and CPC to reconsider the parking calculation methodology to include a more robust set of factors. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Mao. Questions? Thank you. That is our last speaker who has signed up. And I again ask if anyone is interested in speaking on this item to come forward. If not, the public hearing on this application is closed. I will note for the benefit of the commissioners that we will now take a pause, not because of an eclipse, but because in order to allow members of the public who will be speaking on our final two applications to have some certainty about timing, we advise them that the public hearing on the East Harlem rezoning would begin at 2 p.m. So if we could be reconvened back here at 2 p.m. And with that, I wish you a pleasant lunchtime.
Go out and warm up. We're going to go
Yes,
out
go
in
out
the
to the sun.
sunshine.